Hey guys, to help run the forums, host the website, and travel, we've introduced a universal service fee for in-depth coverage, including this video. My goal is to be unbiased and transparent. It's a privilege to serve you. This is not an endorsement. Let's get into it. Hey guys, we're in beautiful Memory Park, Salt Lake City, Utah. Perfect place to check out some of the new Magnum electric bikes, and we're looking at the Ui6 right here. And I brought the Ui6 Plus over there. They're very similar bikes, but that one has slightly a larger wheel diameter, 28 inches versus 26, so that keeps the frame a little bit lower. This one, 18-inch frame versus 19-inch, so that's the seat tube measurement and a few other things. I'm going to review that one separately, but I wanted to show them back to back. This one's more approachable. It has this like step-through design, but I love that they've gone with double tubing right here because that reduces frame flex and it keeps the bike feeling really solid. It does add a little bit of weight, especially when you look at also having these aluminum alloy fenders, nice mud flaps at the ends, a rack, and then a high capacity battery pack there. That's 48 volts, 13 amp hours, 624 watt hours. It's pretty impressive. You come back here to the motor. This is from Das Kit. It's a 500 watt nominal, 700 watt peak, 90 newton meters of torque on that planetary geared hub motor. So 48 volt, 500 watt motor. I had reviewed the Ui5, which looks very similar a few years ago, and it's just neat to see something that has a little bit more power. If you're someone who weighs a bit more, or maybe you want to go longer distances, or you find yourself in an area with a lot of hills and you feel like, yeah, I want to be able to climb that effectively. The bike is fairly comfortable. It has this SR Suntour NEX suspension fork up front. It's pretty basic. It's kind of like a spring fork, and you can see it has steel stanchions. There's no lockout, but it does have preload adjusters under these plastic caps. I've pulled them off before just to confirm that, and then occasionally they break, and then they look nice left on, so I haven't messed with them for this review, and I would say just be careful if you're trying to pull those caps off. But if you are someone who weighs more and you want to preload those springs so that you actually get some travel, you can. It's a nice feature. I love that the fork matches the frame. It's this nice satin white with some blue and gray accents, and that a lot of the other hardware is black and kind of ties in nicely. We've even got a suspension seat post here. This is Pro Max. It's fairly basic, 40 millimeters of travel. If you take it out, this is 300 millimeters long. There is a bolt in the bottom, and you can tighten or loosen that, just like the suspension fork, to sort of preload and give yourself the right spring tension for your body weight. We've also got a gel saddle, Sally Royale. Pretty nice stuff. Ergonomic, sort of faux leather grips right there. They aren't locking, so if you really bear down, they can twist, but this is something that I see on a lot of electric bikes, and it's a good compromise to keep the price low. I was really impressed to hear that this is $16.99 now, so it dropped quite a bit. The Ui5, when I reviewed it years ago, I think it was like in the $2,000 range, so you're getting some pretty nice hardware. Potentially a local dealer who can set this up for you and provide some support. It does come with a 1-year comprehensive warranty. Magnum is a leader kind of in the value and utility space for me, because they don't just, it's not just like, yeah, we're going to give you a bike without fenders, without lights or anything. It comes with everything. So this is commuter ready. Notice these thicker 13 gauge spokes. We've got some branding on the rims. That's nice. And then the tires here, these are Schwalbe Big Bend. They have K-Guard 3 puncture protection. They've got the reflective sidewall stripe on the side too, so you're going to be seen. These are 26-inch by 2.15, so they're a little bit fatter, and that's going to give you some comfort, the increased air volume compared to these narrower ones. These might be a little quicker, a little bit more like rolling momentum, lower attack angle if you go for the Ui6 Plus. But again, it's just a bigger bike. So in a way, that's like a large, and then this would be like the small medium. Love that they've got bottle cage bosses there. I love that they've positioned the battery, sort of a semi-integrated battery right there in the middle of the frame. And replacements are like in the $600 range, and that's fairly low for such a high capacity battery, especially with Samsung, LG, or Panasonic cells. They use nice stuff, and that's because they've separated the controller, which is right here. So see, it says Das Kit, and it's a little metal box. It's going to be pretty well protected because of this fender. Another mud flap up here, which is nice if you're pedaling and you're turning and you kick that. The rubber's flexible versus the aluminum alloy fender itself. But anyway, see, you know, it's black. It does stand out a little bit visually, and it's kind of like, it'd be nice if the battery controller were completely hidden, but that raises the price a little bit, and potentially the heat that the battery cells get exposed to, which can be kind of hard on those cells. You want to keep them in a cool, dry location. This is a removable battery pack, and I put the key in it so I could show you how that works. Just unlocks from this side like this, and then you pull on this lever, and it tips out from the side. About 9.2 pounds on the battery. Again, 60.1 pounds for the battery, or the bike with everything attached. It's kind of tough to get this thing lined up. There we go. So I turned the key, locked it in. Good. Here's the charging port. It's pretty close to that crank arm, so be careful if you're charging and you're moving those cranks. It could have a little bit of a snag happening. And then they've positioned that kickstand in the middle of the frame, which can lead to pedal lock, which can be frustrating if you've parked this way back in your garage and you're just trying to like carefully go between your car and a wall and you're backing it up and you forget to stow the kickstand. You get that lock and then you have to like move it forward and mess with it. It's one of my complaints. There really aren't too many complaints with this bike, but there are some compromises. Notice this headlight up here. It's wired in, which means it's going to take advantage of that high capacity battery, but you have to physically press this button to get it to activate. It isn't activated through the display. And then on this rear light, it's a nice light, Spinninga Solo, but it has 2 AAA batteries, and it also has to be activated independently. And the downside of having to do that is you might turn the lights on, go for a ride, see your friend, get excited, park your bike, and you forget to turn off that light, and then the battery's gonna deplete slowly while you're hanging out with your friends and wear those batteries out, and they're disposable. It'd be nice if they were wired in, but that can create another failure point. You know, that's another cable running across the bike. And look how nicely they've routed these cables internally. So the frame, you know, when you look at it, it's very clean. And again, that matching fork and everything. The Ui6 does come in white, as we see here, as well as black, which is going to look pretty much just like that bike, only step through. So a little bit more approachable, just like this, which is much more comfortable for someone if you have like hip or knee sensitivity, and especially if you have this rack loaded up. Imagine having like a little trunk bag back here. Maybe you have the charger in there, a pump, you know, some extra supplies, some food or something like that. It's just nice to be able to step through the frame instead of over it. And this is what the charger looks like. It comes with a little toolkit and everything. Weighs about 1.5 pounds. It's a 2-amp charger. It's, you know, kind of basic, kind of generic. I've seen this charger from other companies, and it helps them to keep the price low. It might take 6.5 hours to fully charge that battery. So keep that in mind. It's just something you're going to have to think about, and being able to take that off and reduce the weight of this bike by 9 pounds is great for moving the bike, and at the same time storing that battery in a place where it's gonna hold up and not get too hot or too cold. Nice mechanical disc brakes, 180 millimeter rotor up front, 160 millimeter in the back. And, you know, it's like, why not 180 on both? And it might be just because there's a little bit of crowding happening back here, and they realize that a lot of your stopping force comes from the front wheel, because as you brake, you shift forward and kind of dive. And that's going to happen on the suspension fork. It'll compress a little bit like that as you slow down. So I think they made the right choice. And this comes back to value. These aren't mechanical disc brakes. You do have a motor inhibitor in the left lever, not in the right, so that's another little probably cost savings. They've got a little bell integrated right here. I really like that bell. And then a rubberized leading edge on the brake lever itself. And it's a pretty clean cockpit when you look at these wires and stuff. I love how slim the trigger throttle is. It fits really nicely. It's very easy to reach on this bike. It's right there where your fingers go, and they were able to put trigger shifters instead of the big thumb shifters like some of the other more affordable bikes. And those bikes do that because they have twist throttles and the housing is bigger and stuff. So for me, this DOS kit throttle is a real highlight on this bike, and it just makes it comfortable. So back to those grips, the suspension, and then this adjustable stem. It's tool-free, so you can open it up. You can swivel this forward or backwards, and it's on a bit of a riser here too, so it gives you this upright body position. It's a very comfortable bike, all things considered, and it gives you a lot of different drive mode options, which we're going to get to in a second. But before we do, standard 170 millimeter cranks. We've got these Welgo aluminum alloy platform pedals with metal pins. They offer good traction and good surface area. You're not going to slip off super easily. They're not going to crack if the bike tips over. And we've got an alloy chain ring guard. It's not a guide, so it'd be nice if there was another plate here just to keep the chain from derailing inward. But you know, that really hasn't happened to me too much, and the suspension and everything is, I don't feel like that's going to be a huge issue. If we come to the back of the bike, they've got a steel derailleur guard right here, and that's protecting the motor power cable and Shimano Altus derailleur. Altus is one step up from entry level on the Shimano component group set, so that might make it a little bit more reliable, a little bit lighter weight. And the cassette, it's 7 speeds. It goes from 14 to 28. Not the widest spread, but you know, it's workable. It looks like this is nickel plated, like it's going to be rust resistant. The interesting thing about these bikes is that technically they're class 3. They offer throttle, but if you want to, you can go a little bit faster than 20 miles per hour, which is where the throttle stops. You can pedal probably about 25 miles per hour. So this could be a good option for someone who's commuting around town, you got your gear and you want to keep up with cars or just get to work a little bit faster. You can do that with pedal assist, and there are 6 levels, which we'll talk about in a minute. And it uses a cadence sensor that's really nice. It's compact, it's sealed, it's right in there, and that's a 12 magnet sensor. So it's fairly responsive. You don't have to pedal too long before the motor kicks on. And you also don't have to push super hard as you would with a torque sensor. But as soon as you stop pedaling, the motor might continue for just a second because it's, you know, there's a bit of a delay, and that's where that motor inhibiting brake lever comes in. So I would keep that in mind. That's just a little tip for once you're out there and you're riding faster, especially with traffic and stuff. So I love that you're going to be visible with the reflective sidewalls, with the lights, and on this frame in particular, the white frame is really nice that way. Got this rack. I've mentioned it a couple times now that it'd be useful for like panniers or trunk bag or something like that, but it is removable if you don't want this. And it is positioned in such a way that the saddle can come down all the way, and there's still some clearance. Like it hangs over a little bit depending on where you've got it, and also how the saddle's mounted if we slid that forward more. But this is a nice rack, and I believe it's rated to 25 kilograms, like 55 pounds roughly. So that's nice. It's a pretty decent setup, and it's nice that everything works. It's not like you have to buy anything aftermarket and hope that it fits right. If you wanted to bring this saddle even lower, you just have to replace the suspension seat post with a rigid seat post, and that would save you a few inches probably. So that's a little quick tip if you're someone who maybe a little bit more petite and you're concerned about standover height and stability. This bike over here, it has a really tall minimum saddle height because of the suspension seat post and because of the frame design. I actually feel like Magnum could have like dropped that seat post a little bit lower, but you might have the collision with the rack. Like there's so many considerations, but as it stands, this is in the lowest position and there's pretty good spacing. So just keep that in mind. I have measured, you know, the width, the length, the standover height, all the dimensions and stuff. They're back at the website, and I have a comparison tool so you can see them back to back. And I measure these by hand to try to be as accurate as possible, but I welcome you to chime in, you know, based on your own experiences in the comments and stuff. So I think that's a pretty good overview. I mentioned the DOS kit motor before, 500 watts. I mean, it's a pretty powerful motor, and you're actually going to get a little bit more power and zip off of this bike because of the smaller wheel diameter than on this one. So really, I would probably just get this if I was a bigger person and wanted like the taller standover height and reach and everything like that. It is a slightly bigger frame, and it's just elevated more. The fact that this comes in black, that would be probably my choice. This or a black one, just because I'm about 5'9", and I don't mind the step through. It's good for me, and kind of my knees and stuff like that. So coming up to the display panel, I should mention, if you haven't ridden the bike for a little while or you took the battery off, press that little power button on top. It kind of primes the system. And then you press the M button right here. There's a 6-bar battery infographic. So that's kind of nice. It's a little higher resolution than 5-bar readouts on a lot of other systems. Current speed in miles per hour. Assist, it always starts in level 1, and the throttle is hot at all times, so be careful. A lot of times I'll mount the bike before I turn it on, because if you bump that throttle, it could take off. And, you know, it's kind of a powerful motor. You take it down to assist level 0, and then you don't have to worry about pedaling or activating or anything with that, and then it's just like a little scooter, which is kind of cool. And I like that this menu actually goes around. So see, I clicked minus and it went all the way up to 6. So that's really great. It doesn't require you to go like 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. You can just go up or down, like full power, no power. And then we've got odometer. If we press the M button, we've got trip time, trip meter, max speed, and then this might be total time. I was a little bit confused by that before. If we hold the minus button, it gives us walk mode, which is kind of nice. There we go. And I'm just moving that pedal so we don't get pedal lock when we ride. If we hold the plus button for a second, it does backlighting just on the display, which is cool. Can't see because it's so bright, but again, to get that light active, you have to actually press this button down here. So I'd activated it before and I just turned it off so we don't forget later. I think that's about it. There might be one more little area to explore by holding the plus and minus, and then there's a code. You can work with your dealer on that, but that would actually let you lower your top speed if you wanted to. Some people don't want to go 28, 25 or whatever, or even 20. You want to go a little bit slower, and that's going to help extend the range of the battery. You can change from miles per hour to kilometers per hour. You can adjust the wheel size and stuff, but you really want to leave most of this the same, like 48 volts, 26 inch, and that way the bike is going to function properly. It's a nice cockpit. It's a very reachable display. It's not removable, so it could take some sun and some scratching and stuff at racks over time, but it is fairly modular. See, there's a disconnect right here, and these are just, press fit connectors. You're going to be able to get those from Magnum or from your dealer and just get good support. So for me, that's one of the reasons I cover bikes like this, is because they are at dealers, and you get, I think, a better experience. There are some cheaper bikes out there on eBay and some other places, but you're left a little bit more on your own. So depending on your level of proficiency and your trust in the company, I mean, Magnum's been around for, the last time I reviewed these was like 2015, 2016. We're in 2019 now, and they're bigger than ever. So I feel like that says a lot. I'm gonna go ahead and hop on this bike. I'm just gonna stow the kickstand, howdy, and go for a little ride. I think I'm gonna do some grass riding because we're right there. Give you some suspension fork action. Go. Oh, this curb, whoa boy. It's a pretty big curb. I'm gonna walk it. Don't need to have any accidents today. There we go. But interestingly, I didn't hear the chain really making a whole lot of noise when I went off the curb there, and they do have that nice slap guard. So yeah, it's these aluminum fenders, they're not gonna rust like steel could, and they're a little bit quieter than plastic. So aluminum alloy is a good choice, but they do add a little bit of weight. I'm gonna do the throttle now. And again, that gives us full throttle power regardless of whatever level of assist we're in. Here we go. There we go, and we're up to 17. We are climbing a hill, 18, 19 and a half, 20. So there we go. Pretty stable feeling as well, because those slightly light, like wider tires, they give comfort and a little bit of stability. Here's pedal assist. Pretty responsive. It didn't take but that long for the motor to start up and to quit. But now I'm gonna squeeze that brake lever a little bit and pedal, and see the motor doesn't activate at all because of that motor inhibitor. So it's a pretty nice setup that way. What a beautiful park, huh? A nice little stream, people outside riding their bikes and stuff. Okay guys, from here you can see that 48 tooth aluminum alloy chainring up there, along with this alloy guard. It's gonna protect your pants a little bit and just keep the train on track. Back here we've got 14 to 28 tooth cassette, 7 speeds. It's a little bit more limited. I have seen 11 to 32 or even 11 to 36. And that taller gear, like 28 or 32, 36, that's gonna make it easier to climb. But I feel like with these smaller diameter wheels and that really powerful motor, it's working pretty well. And again, I just love that guard is there if the bike tips over or whatever, to protect the derailleur and the motor power cable. I'm gonna pedal along in the highest level of assist so you can get a sense for how the motor sounds and how responsive it is. I'm not gonna use the throttle at first, so this will give you an idea of how quickly it activates. Very nice. We got up to 25, and I did ask the folks about that, and they were like, yeah, that's realistically, that's where it goes. I think the motor might continue assisting up to around 28. It's not actually boosting you as much, so you have to work a little bit harder to achieve that. So again, it's class 3, unless you adjust the display. You could take it all down to 20 miles per hour, and then it'd be like a Class 2. You could unplug the throttle, and then it would be kind of like a Class 1, if that's what you need in your jurisdiction. So Chris is over there. He's on the UI6. He was going to ride along and show us some of the suspension action. Very nice, man. It's such a perfect spot, you know, it's not too crowded, people are having fun outside. Beautiful. I think that's about it, you guys. I hope that helped you to get a good idea of what the UI6 offers compared to the UI5, and just some of the little updates since the last time we looked at this bike. I feel like Magnum, they get something right and they kind of stick with it. They don't change a whole lot over time. They're really focused on their dealers. They're focused on customer support. I think this is a nice looking bike and it offers good value. And I feel like just a few little things like that throttle design, I really like that. In some ways, you know, people might prefer twist throttles, half grip throttles that I've seen from other companies, but those, you know, if you're on bumpy terrain, it can kind of compromise your grip a little bit, whereas this is very sturdy, and then you have to be very intentional about pressing that throttle. Anyway, for the full written review, I'll see you back at electricbikereview.com. All the specs and everything we talked about. Have fun out there, ride safe, love you guys, we'll see you next time.